The video you are currently watching was originally posted on my IGTV as a follow-up to this video, so if you're not following me on Instagram, go ahead and follow me over there, and let's get started.
So I want to do a little follow-up to my narcissism, neoliberalism, and nonprofit industrial complex video because I've been thinking about something that I didn't really get to fully explain in the video just because it didn't really fit into the personal reflection narrative. And that is talking about the problem with executive directors in nonprofits. So I woke up this morning at like 5 a.m. partially because my cat woke me up and I couldn't fall back asleep, and then I wrote out this whole text post, and I'm going to be reading off of it if it sounds like a script, but that's what I'm going to be doing. So this is not a call out to any specific executive directors, but more of an examination on how executive directors kind of fit into the role of capitalist ideology and nonprofits. So if you are an executive director and you happen to be watching this video, I hope that you take this as an opportunity to sort of examine your organization's culture. What I have noticed in the nonprofit world is a tendency to really put executive directors on a pedestal. I know myself, I worked with an executive director that I looked up to when I first started doing social justice work, and I really saw this person as like the epitome of like a great leader. Who the executive director is has a lot of weight on the organization's access to resources, relationships, connections, and thus funding. So early on in the pandemic, about a year ago, I had a conversation with the executive director that I looked up to, who I worked with early in my career, and I was reflecting on when I worked with this executive director, this person was the same age as I am now. So that's really interesting to think about and related to a conversation I had recently about being a movement elder. That's just really weird. But it was in this conversation where we were talking about some of the early content I was putting out around healing and racial justice and movement work, where I realized that executive directors have these doubts and insecurities and really don't know what they're doing. And it's really rare that they're actually going to admit that publicly. So by maintaining a culture where the executive director is synonymous to the organization itself and allowing for the ego of the executive director to sort of take over, and this can especially be the case for founders, people who start organizations where it's literally them and their personal sort of efforts and mission into starting the organization, where this can happen. And we collectively, both as the public and the executive directors individually, personally themselves, play a role in dehumanizing executive directors, the person behind the executive director title. So everything that they do publicly and everything that they post on social media is seen as a representation of the organization. And we also do this with billionaires who are CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, who are often directors at their own foundations where they can funnel off money to be protected from taxes, but that is a different topic. But as I mentioned in my video, it's not in the nonprofit's advantage, nor then the executive director's advantage to publicly admit their doubts or mistakes about certain strategies they may implement or actions that they took. But executive directors are human, and we should expect that they do not have the answers and they alone cannot solve the world's problems. I'm not saying that we should be nicer to executive directors because they're human and not hold them accountable for when they take action that are contrary to the missions of their stated work. But what I am saying is that the real work of nonprofits is done by the frontline workers, the people who every day go into the real or metaphoric streets in this virtual world and try to meet the needs of the communities they are serving. And workers are the ones who should be getting credit for the nonprofit's work, not executive directors. And when it comes to visioning and strategic planning, the workers who have direct experience trying to meet the needs and the training to do so oftentimes, and the community members who directly experience the social conditions should be the ones that dictate where the organization is going and what kind of work it should be doing. And when it comes back down to how it's funded, instead of nonprofit executives and board members saying, well, funders don't pay for that kind of stuff, These leaders should be figuring out new ways to get the money for the services they need outside of the traditional funding system if it's not going to be met by those traditional funders, if it's too radical. So those are my thoughts.